Yeah, overall, I definitely feel like we are becoming once again a stronger force within the competitive region, and so I'm glad to see that.
Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview covering VCT America Stage 2. For this occasion, I'm here accompanied once again by TenZ of Sentinels, who are coming off of a 2-0 series victory over Crew in said competition. So, I was going to say Sentinels now. TenZ, thank you so much again for another interview this season. First and foremost, just covering this series, a pretty tough opponent coming into this in Crew, finishing first in their respective group back in the regular season of Stage 1. But for you guys to come out on top, what's the feeling like for you right now?
Definitely really good. Just being able to keep our composure, gain leads, and hold them. We have been still on the trend of kind of making matches closer than they have to be. So I don't know, maybe a little send spice on the matches. But yeah, overall, it just feels really good that we are kind of returning back to what feels like a winning form.
Yeah, that's kind of been what the sentiment has been like for this Sentinels team lately. As a result of just not having a good stage one, but now after winning your first two matches in stage two, it feels like you guys are now getting back into your top form, that kind of form that took you guys to success in the early portion of this year. Still sticking with that series against Crew, you mentioned a little bit about just how it's been a trademark now recently about how you guys kind of allow Crew to kind of fight. Crew and other opponents kind of fight their way back into each given map. What do you think is the cause for that?
I think it's hard to specifically identify the exact reason. Could be hesitation, could be just us trying not to be cursed and like throw away the game, but then like unintentionally you kind of do it in the end. Yeah, just like overly cautious, not trusting our intuition like right on bat. And so I think that overall can contribute to a lot of like unsteady games when it kind of looks like the game's going like a smooth sailing.
What do you think was the biggest obstacles that Crew presented to this team? Just sort of off of the things that I've been talking about in describing Crew, so far in this conversation.
Yeah, I think overall, just Crew is a very good mechanical team. And so I think that if you don't properly use your util and you just take one-on-ones, there's a good chance that they too can also take the lead from the gunfights. So I think in that sense, you have to battle them confidently, but also in a smart way and not be too confident because that can kind of like chuck away around.
Going over into map two and split, of course, it's a customary map in the sense that you guys have been normally dominant in that map so far in this year. It's sort of been kind of a little bit of a copy paste type of thing with Lotus and Split. Just sort of walk me through how you guys kind of came out on top on Split against Crew.
I think just trusting our game plan, playing confidently. I think later on in the attacks half, we were able to kind of read their setups quite easily. And once that was kind of done, then attack side became a lot easier. We were struggling initially. Um, yeah, I think overall, like they are like a really strong team, and so definitely one that you can't take lightly. So definitely, we had a solid game plan going in, and I think it worked pretty efficiently as we were able to tell what they were doing most of the time.
Kind of want to highlight back onto to Lotus. It just sort of highlight the fact that you guys didn't go for the deadlock once again. Didn't go for the deadlock once again. I mean, what was the thought process in that? Just sort of going back to your usual thing for this occasion.
Yeah, I would say it's more of a kind of like a anti-counter strat idea where we can kind of pick the comps depending on what we feel like would be kind of efficient against other teams. And I think a lot of other teams are very static with their compositions. They're not too experimental and they won't really change off of what works for them. So, I mean, I think it's a solid strategy. Like, don't fix what ain't broke. But also, I think it kind of adds a level to our game plan that makes it a lot harder for enemy teams to read. And especially if a team enters a prep against an entirely different composition, the prep can kind of feel useless. And it feels like they would have to make adaptations on the fly within the match rather than just having it on the get-go, talking about it in the practice room and stuff like that, and entering the match with like this whole cookie cutter game plan of how they would want how they would want to play against us.
So it just gives you guys a lot more options just for further down the line, just being, as you said, being a much more dangerous team, and just having a lot more options available, right?
Yeah, I would just add as well. I think one of the struggles that we had in Madrid when we came back, and we were kind of not the greatest in the regional split. I think it was also due in part that we had so many VODs out, and teams were able to kind of like just scan through all of them, notice patterns, notice strategies. They could tell what certain tells we had, and I think going into this next split, it is really good that we are doing this because it's one thing that kind of to be quite frank, kind of messed with us a lot when teams were playing really against us and they had it kind of figured out. But there was a lot less time to prepare for that last split compared to this split now, where we're actually able to play either our old game plans or even newly crafted ones.
Yeah, and it even gets another dimension to this team sort of progression from early part of of this year to to right now at this very moment. I had a chance to talk to Kaplan last week, end of last week, before talking to you, and he sort of mentioned a little bit about how the team has kind of been innovating, just moving on from stage one, disappointing showing, not making playoffs first and foremost, to now just sort of hearing you talk about how the team is kind of focused on innovating and just kind of presenting different compositions. Exactly what were the kind of things that you guys focus on in order to just present a different dimension of yourselves during the break or during the break after stage one, before stage two, if I might ask?
So definitely, we entered the next split after a nice little break that we were able to have some time off, clear our mental space, and then kind of find a new motivation when we were kind of feeling burnt out a little bit. So I definitely think that kind of like stepping away from your old game plan and creating a new one, it isn't really an easy task, and I think it can be quite hard, especially in Valorant, because man, you're playing against so many different compositions and such. So you two then have to adapt with the new composition rather than making it easier for yourself and having the single comp that you can just adapt to everything if you talk about it beforehand. But yeah, I definitely think that like the surprise aspect was something that was very enticing to us. And so I do think like it can kind of make it scary for a team preparing against us in the future, just because it's that uncertainty that you won't enter the game that's exactly the same as what you watched.
Did you take any inspiration from observing other teams in terms of compositions from, like, let's say, Master Shanghai? Because, like, sure, you guys had a vacation, but I can assume that you kind of got a little bit of an eye towards those matches. Because did you guys take any inspiration? And if so, which kind of teams did you kind of look at?
I would say that's more of a question for the coaching staff and the IGL. I just gotta do my part. I show up, I pick a woman. So that's kind of what my role is. But I do think that for my overall ideology of how I see Valorant, I see Valorant as an ability-based shooter, and therefore I think that adaptive comps are really strong. It's kind of like the way I see League of Legends. You can't just pick the same composition every single time. Obviously, people can ban the champions, but I think in Valorant, like having that dynamic composition, it plays differently. You have different win cons, you have different strengths and weaknesses. So when teams don't know and identify it early on, you can kind of snowball half away really easily. So I think overall, that ideology is really strong, but it is really hard to implement. So I'm really glad that we definitely see eye to eye, like the coaching staff and me.
You mentioned a little bit of League of Legends, sort of side topic. I just want to cover. You mentioned you posted a little bit on your Twitter about how you bought the Hall of Legends Faker bundle. I mean, it's quite a lot of money that you spend right there, and it's vastly comparing to that, like, to the Sentinels bundle. I mean, just sort of like, why?
I definitely think the Sentinels bundle is more bang for your buck. I I definitely think Faker is just a legend within League of Legends. Everyone kind of sees him as like an icon in League of Legends competitive space. So to me, I mean, I feel like I'm comfortable financially to purchase the skin. Definitely when I load into games, either Ari's banned or I pick the skin and then people start roasting me. So I think it's kind of funny. I do get the occasional flame from that, but oh yeah, overall, I think it's just really cool that they did release that. But I do not agree with the price tag. I think that was kind of extravagant to say the least, and especially for most common esports viewers and fans, it's not really optimal to purchase such a big purchase like that. Whereas in the Sentinels bundle, that's like $20. That's like a nice lunch in LA. So, I mean, you can get the Sentinels bundle. You can get like 2 to 3 coffees for a day. So I mean, so it's up to what someone wants and what they see as valuable. But I do think the Sentinels bundle is very big bang for your buck.
Well, I didn't expect for you to make that quick advertisement for the bundle. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. I understand that. Getting back into the game, though, I'm just sort of going back into just the topic that I talked about earlier on in the conversation. But I think before the first question, sort of with the team now getting back to its usual form. Um, is it fair to say that this team is back? You know, back to the old form. You know, back to the usual. Not not like the same usual, but so you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To the old strong form of the team. Is that fair to say?
I would say that we're definitely entering a stronger era to specifically identify whether we're stronger now than before. I think it's a little bit difficult. I think the game is ever evolving, and so there has been some spice added into the game recently. But yeah, overall, I definitely feel like we are becoming once again a stronger force within the competitive region, and so I'm glad to see that. And I think it's always really nice to feel confident in the team and our ability to play together and win together. So I think that is really important to us, and it also helps our confidence a lot, which in turn also kind of helps our performance.
Do you feel that you're the strongest team?
In Americas, uh, I would say we have the potential to be called the strongest team. I still think it's a day by day thing. We definitely still have our bad days, but if we do iron out those bad days and we're able to kind of fix some issues, then yes, I do think we would be the strongest team in Americas.
For sure, and hopefully you guys can continue this form for your next opponent in Super Week, I believe, and then everything else after that. TenZ, really appreciate you taking the time. I'm gonna wrap up my interview right here. We really appreciate you taking the time once again, answering all my questions, and of course, best of luck. Go see you for the next one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.